Are you ready for me?
Yep, just introduce yourself. Let us know if you have anything new that's coming up or that you want to talk about, and then get right into it.
Talk about it. It's February. It's the 14th is tomorrow, so I have two love poems, if that's okay. At the ocean alone. My bare feet touch the water. I am ecstatic to be alive. To stand on the edge of this shore, caging this magnificent animal that sways its giant self, a melody of breeze and salt, as it comes and goes from me like an old friend, Walt. The sun glistens on the ocean's flowing hair. A crown of such glory hovers there. I cannot look without a wish, my dear, that you were here. That's it. And then, thank you. And the second one is looking, I'm still in the ocean. It's looking over the vast ocean. If I stand by the water with my naked feet, am I in it better than the man beside me who wears shoes because he's afraid of getting wet? It is a delicate thin curve of the shore that divides us equally from the horizon. I take his hand and laugh. We were together. I forget the rest.
Thank you for that. I just recently read a wonderful article by another editor about the use of common objects that the reader can relate to. In this case, your second poem, shoes, right? That enables us to get a fast start on the poem because the reader can immediately bring something to the poem. They have their own feeling about shoes. It's a tangible thing that we're all familiar with. I thought that the start on that was so strong. Very well done. Thank you for that. I'm bringing in one person. And then we will go on to, hey, John, let's go ahead and we'll get to you.
Okay. The background here, I'm not much for form or for, but I did write a cento poem. And then I went to a terrific workshop in Ireland, and it was on found poetry where they use uh, different words for it, and they have something called adaptive found. And I actually adapted the cento that I had done. So let's try them both. Cento poem number one. And and the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. We gave an IOU to the devil with a dirty smile, but she added to the growing pile of the promises you mean to keep the day your dreams come true. The big of the fool, the heart of the fall. Love is the reason we happened at all. Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve even one of the pleasures I've known? He's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction, taking every wrong direction on his lonely road back home. There's a lot of wrong directions on that lonely road back home. And he keeps right on changing for the better or the worse, searching for a shrine he's never found, never knowing if believing is a blessing or a curse. Then I fumbled through the closet for my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. And I washed my face and combed my hair and stumbled down the stairs to start the day. My soul's in your hand. Lord, help me, Jesus. All words by Chris Christopherson from Sunday Morning Coming Down. The show goes on. The bigger the fool, the last to go. Why me? And the Pilgrim, chapter 33, written the week after Christopherson announced his retirement at the age of 85. And I thought that was the end of it. But then I heard about this adaptive found poem. So this is adaptive found poem number one. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Rockaway 1958. Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve in one of the places I've known? So many, and they keep on coming. He's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction, and he keeps right on changing for the better or the worse. From an English major to a technologist to a writer to a college professor to a poet. Never knowing if believing is a blessing or a curse. Why me, Lord? So many of my friends, family, acquaintances, co-workers, heroes aren't with us anymore, but I'm still here. My soul's in your hand. Lord, help me, Jesus. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me go to gallery view here so I can see all your faces. Interesting the way that you were able to marry those different lines that where most of us probably are very familiar with. Sunday Morning Coming Down. I've sang that song so many times. Kind of reminds me of Flarf. You guys know what Flarf poetry is? Flarf is a form of poetry being taught in some of the universities where the students will Google something and then they'll grab little phrases from the search results. And it doesn't matter what database you use or how you obtain these things, but what it is you sort of grab icons of language and then you weave them together and it creates something interesting. All right. Denise, you have to unmute yourself and we'll go ahead and share with us.
Thanks so much. So I want to do, the first poem is called A Trek. It was published in Clementine Unbound, an online journal, which started out as a print journal. It's a trek. Regret is like following a path through the bush, retracing your steps from the other end in search of an animal, tracking its footsteps as they recede into dust, only a whiff of scent still clinging to the felt grass. Regret wraps itself around you like a worn fleece, the one you wear for this trek, the one you loathe to give away. Not now, not yet. It's still too snug, in a warm, familiar way, despite tattered cuffs and a too tight fit. Shoulders drooping, pulling you back with each movement to remorse, specks of dirt ground into its fabric, each scuff on the sleeve, a word said in jest, misunderstood, a gesture not intended, a chance, a chance, missed and rude. Your thoughts bulge with words spoken hastily, then lamented, actions taken or not taken, instants lost and mourned. Moments frayed at the edges, regret is like retrieving a map from the back pocket of your memory to find landmarks warped and faded, blurred by the stretch and scratch of time. So you return home weary of footsteps behind you at dusk, that hour of unease. Glenn, the second one is Bridge at Victoria Falls, which was published in Poetry Quarterly a few years ago. I know you didn't want political. Is this okay? I mean, it is during the apartheid. It's during apartheid, and it takes place in Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia then.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, Bridge at Victoria Falls. I was 12 when I saw a man step over a line that mattered, not a random line crafted by a snail in beach sand, nor a child's chalked line for a pavement game of hopscotch soon to be washed away by rain. It was not simply whimsical, nor helpful like the trail trackers follow through felt from one lion's spur to the next. Instead, this line was solid, white, painted, with intent at a midpoint, left to right across a bridge, a border to stop people, divide lands, impose penalties. Close behind we watched, The man raised his arm to trace a rainbow's arc over hazy basalt cliffs, then his unintended step materializing. From mist, a policeman appeared on the Zambian side by the trespasser, pulled back barely into Rhodesia, a half shoe length between prison and his freedom, face ashen. He turned towards us, feet unsteady, his wife, shouting, raging at the world, then stricken with relief. South Africans in white. We were enemy too, and how close the fall, a cascade plummeting into the river below. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was very powerful. I notice in your poetry, there's oftentimes this travel movement, right? There's this little bit like the first poem. I'm trying to remember. You said "sorrow like a map" or something like that, and the second one, there's that drawing a line and traversing and moving, and it's really powerfully done. You're good at that. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks very much.
All right. Emily Strauss.
Hello, everybody. I'm new in this group, but Glenn has taken poems of mine since 2004. I checked back in my record just to, no, excuse me, 14. I checked back in my records just to look. I'm going to read two poems that are unpublished, if that's okay.
Sure.
And maybe I can figure out how to share a screen. Let me see, and that maybe, and then I've got to figure out how to unshare it. Anyway, I'm in Oregon in the United States. That's where I'm living. So share this one. All right, let's see if I can do that. Share. Okay, let's see if I can do that. These are two new poems. They're not published. This one is called Used Christmas Tree. Cut down a growing tree with annual rings that show a few years of life. And now you have a dying tree in your home, giving off the fragrance of sap, trying to return to roots that were left behind in the cool forest. Later, when you are done with it and the branches start their slow, dry, curling death, you toss the carcass outside and it becomes a used tree, a secondhand tree in the dirt with brown needles and branches. It left a gap with a bare stump back on the mountain. More sap oozing from the open face. The fatal cut, while the ornaments get broken or packed away, the tree now trash next to the bin, chewed up in the truck. Bits of bark settle, a used tree, a life discarded. And one more. Let's see, maybe I can do this. Hold on. This one. Okay. New Year's Eve of just a month and a half ago. Cleaning cobwebs. In the final hours of a miserable year, what else is there to do but listen to Beethoven's Ninth and clean cobwebs from the ceiling with a fluorescent green, alien-fingered polyester dusting wand? A clean start. Let them weave again, like we all will, not wafting overhead on gossamer threads I only notice as soon as I lie down and have to jump up again and swipe them with the green monster, the second movement playing. Without fireworks or fanfare or friends, I imagine everyone else alone, closed up against the snow outside, watching an old movie, washing dishes, waiting for it to end, for a tiny smile that next year must be better sometime, when the ode to joy will be more truthful, when the cobwebs will be gone.
Thank you for that. That's good. You could just about teach a class on line breaks. You're so good at it. That's so nice. For anybody that wants to rewind this video and look at the way that she broke those lines, you can learn a lot. That is very well done. Mary C., are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and this is your time to shine.
Okay. My name is Mary, and I would like to read one haiku and one tanka. The
Mhm.
haiku is one that was published by your own 50 Haikus journal back in 2014, and it reads, Valentine's Day. One man buys 2 bouquets of red roses. And the tanka is one that was published by the British Haiku Society in a members' tanka anthology last year. And it reads, Alone, his wife in a nursing home, he lingers over a cappuccino, perusing Lonely Hearts page. Thank you.
Oh. Wow, the turn on the tanka, that's and kind of heartbreaking, really. I mean, that was great. The 50 haikus piece that you did, it's almost a senryu, kind of funny. I like that. Let's see here. Mary Gunn.
Yes, I've just read.
Oh, so sorry. I wrote your name down twice.
No, it's okay.
So much for not
I'm
making mistakes.
confused.
Let's go to Leanne.
Hi,
Hi, Leanne.
for inviting me. The first one I want to read, it's a lighter poem than the ones I have read in the last 2 poetry readings. And this one was published in Poetry Quarterly, summer 2017. And it's about an encounter I had with nature that turned into a lesson on perception. And this is a true story. It's called Invasion. They arrived this summer, slowly at first, pairs of soft muted wings multiplying outside the frame of my kitchen window. A single butterfly was rare enough. Half a dozen was skirting biblical proportions. I moved gently into their space. As 6 became 12, became 20, my butterfly schematics became battered, imploding as 50 pairs of wings closed in. Entangled in my hair, pelting my face and arms, they signaled the others. Tiny fighter planes, these foreign and misplaced creatures. Batting them away, I escaped back to the other side of my kitchen window to figure out how to exterminate gypsy moths. Sadly, their only true transgression, not being butterflies. The other one I wrote was published in PQ in the winter of 2017. And it's kind of a different look at life after death, kind of a whimsical take on it. And I'm also a lover of the ocean, so it has a lot of ocean stuff in it. It's called Resurrection, a Sonnet in Blue. When I must change shape, let it be a blue poem, an ocean blue verse from the sound of approaching waves, rolling from tongue to lips, with a taste of salt and sun around every syllable. I will be spoken by surprise on the surf of an exhaled sigh for the things that are missed and broken, My words will wash the grief out to sea, veiled in a chorus of crying gulls, whose wings will beat the waters and raise the tide, leaving treasures and signs of unfound things. Memories like polished sea glass will hide within the rhythms echoing in time, and inside each unintentional rhyme.
Haha, I'm talking and you can't hear me. Thank you for that. That was really nice. I like the way that you ended that second poem. Obviously, I like those poems because we published those poems. It's an interesting thing, the perception people have about book editors and editors in general, uh, that we read so much that we can't remember probably anything. And I do have a hard time with names. I've had a hard time with names and faces my whole life. But when I hear a poem, even if it's been years ago, I remember it. I remember, and I love the opportunity. It's like a little gift to be able to hear the actual poet read their own work. Because sometimes it's just like you read it, so it's like a little payoff, and then sometimes it's not. It's like, oh yeah, there's that emphasis there. Very, very nice. So is Julie Dixon still here?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. You're in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. All right, you're up.
Okay. This poem was from Poetry Quarterly in 2017 called Vacant Room. 2 window seats, sun-streaked, unoccupied. The canopy bed with its tatted curtain draped down, fine lace festooned the hem. A somber, silent pattern papered the walls, stretching out around the room like encircling arms, broken only by window moldings. Twin oak chests stood with drawers tightly shut. Only the reading table looked recently attended, candle half burned, book open, expectedly awaiting a reader's return. An inviting but calmly vacant room seemed too tidy to bear any warmth. The other one is, it just was in the gently delayed summer issue called I Am From. I am from sea spray, sprinkled over sand and rocks, leaving behind a salty brine that dries to pale powder. I am from the sky, my wings spread wide, gliding across a cloudless sky. My sharp eyes survey the ground. I am from snow, a frozen memory buried deep under an icy existence, waiting for spring thaw to release me. I am from the dirt, earth mother of all life. Plants and trees emerge as sprouts, animals born from my womb. I am from everywhere and also from nowhere. Space of my universe is vast. I dwell in every shadow. I forgot to say that I'm from New Hampshire and I've been with Glenn for about 6 years now. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That first poem, I would like to say that use of the window, and then that construct is very tried and true. There's a window, it invites the reader to come in, and there are objects that they can relate to, and it really is very powerful to draw the reader in. I think we see that a lot, and it's rarely done as well as you did it. So thank you for that. That was a real invitation into that poem, and I liked it so much. Margaret Tao. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. Margaret, are you here? Oh, I think we lost somebody. All right, we'll check on that again. Eleanor Cantor.
Hi.
Hi, there you are.
Here I am. I can't see myself, but oh yeah, now I can. Yes, so I'm Eleanor, and I'd like to start with a poem that was published in Poetry Quarterly, and it's actually the first poem of mine that was ever published. So yes, so Poetry Quarterly will always have a place in my heart. I've been published since in several magazines. Most recently in Parenthesis just last January. Yeah, but this is my my first ever published poem, and I should say also I regard myself kind of in the third chapter of my life, in the sense that I spent my first 20 odd years in Israel, then the second 20 odd years in Germany, and I've recently relocated to the UK. And this poem is from talks about the first part. So that's just a bit of background, and it's called K. We were young pioneers, playing at it more like it. Make believe in the party's convention center. Socialism and Zionism drills 1 week long ere we're sent back to suburbia. I'd been up all night before taking the bus, straight from my first ever kiss, semi-packed. You must have thought I was so sophisticated and rad when I took the top bunk and borrowed your stuff and said that you should have dates at your age. Quoting Labyrinth, quoting Morrison. I rarely had my own lines back then. Inseparable girls, best friends ever. The myth of youth. We knew too well how rare the times are and that we'd miss them, that we will grow old with dreams unfulfilled, that we will cherish the first cigarette like a million teens before us, that we will someday envy ourselves for having once fussed over diets and spots. We knew it back then, giggling on the bus, sleeping on the beach, sitting on the windowsill, leg in, leg out, crazy. That this is meta-innocence, that summer's almost gone. Still, we knew each other's grandparents, and we will know each other's grandchildren. And that's something. Thank you. Thank you. And I was thinking of reading another poem that's very serious, but then Glenn mentioned poems about, I think it was for Inuit Indiana, poems about coming of age and small town and something entertaining. And since I think we all could do with a bit of light entertainment, so I'd like to share another poem about being a teenager, maybe not in a small town, but definitely in a small country. And this is called When It Appears. So this is a little piece called Guy Denver. I spent the whole show kissing a boy from Colorado 30 years ago, a stadium in the desert. The band was then my age today. The long-awaited comeback, one night only. That's all I had with you. We kissed for 90 minutes, and when the show was through, returned to our separate camps, as good kids do. You'd said you were from Colorado before the kissing started. I don't recall your Western drawl. I don't remember much at all. Apart from boots and red check shirt, I'd never seen a cowboy boy outside a film before that night. I missed most of the concert, but oh, the world I tasted, Colorado. It's loud. What? Didn't catch your name. What? So I moved closer. A stadium in the desert. The long-awaited comeback never came.
That was great. That first poem really touched me. The second poem, the way you use the rhymes, it's very much like Sam Foss, Foss. He wrote The Calves Path, one of my favorite poems. If you don't know that poem, you should go read it. It's great. Called The Calves Path by Samuel Foss. Your rhyme scheme was so reminiscent of that in parts. It was so nice. Thank you, Eleanor. And I hope you come back many times and you're published many more times with us. Michael Watterson.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. My name's Michael Watterson. I live in Napa, California. I'd like to read two poems from my manuscript, Hell's Bells, which is currently out for publication. The first one, the first poem I'd like to read just recently was published in the Santa Clara Review. It's the first poem in my collection. It's called Colloquy with Death. I was chatting with Death the other day, shooting the breeze, and whatever happened to what's-his-name conversation, when, out of nowhere, he startled me with a confession. Bursting into tears, he wailed he feels worthless, racked by self-loathing. I was taken aback. I didn't think we were close enough for that kind of sharing. Awkward. Ever agile, I played the puffer. You are the tortilla, I said, of the whole enchilada, the arrow shot through love's heart. But I don't think he bought my banhami. As my proffered garlands wilted, seized by unease, I broke things off with a wave, a crack at a smile, all the best, etc., and walked briskly away, feeling hollow eyes following me, wondering what in the world to do with this frightening new intimacy. And the second one is about my hometown, Pittsburgh, PA. This won an award about 30 years ago. So I pulled this one out of off the dusty shelf. This is called Steel Season. 3 black rivers meet below me, limned by city lights, whose waters flow unlethe-like with recollection as I fly over coal barges I know still float invisibly in the dark, like guard sharks. Banking over my old home, blue runway lights guide us in like thrown dock ropes as I breathe epiphanies of bitter air, faced with the blizzard of my breath. I've forgotten how its hills bristle with trees like standing armies, how stubborn shadows cling to drifts like cloaks to warm the snow, how red brick houses shoulder the wind, while salt and cinders assault the shoe leather of hunched pedestrians who don't look up. Old mill hunkies call winter steel season. Furnace work needs cold tempering. They still drink Iron City beer, but reminisce snow coated black by stacks smoking around the clock, belching rotten egg stench. When steel cars ruled and real men gladly worked 3 shifts and spit on the grave of Henry Clay Frick. Idle bessemers that once blasted night skies now bank smoldering fear and anger as I arrive with a flickering dawn that still burns, but in the slow cold fire of rust. Slag piles surrender ghosts grudgingly to ragweed dandelion and the drizzle and grit of one more spring. Allegheny and Monongahela meld in my blood. The first cold breath remembers me. Thanks.
I am in the Alleghenies and I have recently tried Iron City beer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing, but I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, it was, was very popular. I still have an Iron City Beer T-shirt, but I've, with the craft brewery revolution, I think my tastes have gone beyond Budweiser and Iron City.
Yeah.
Like Pilsners.
We all have that beer, don't we, that we had when we were kids, that one fallback, when it was less about the beer and more about the effect.
Yeah, sure.
When I was, I think, probably 20, we used to get this terrible beer called Meisterbrow. We bought it in Indiana for, you've had that? We bought it in Indiana for $4 a case.
Right.
And then we drove across the state line into Michigan and returned all of the cans. Got $2.40 for that. So we were getting $1.60 a case beer, and it was about what you might think that was like. Samantha Terrell.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm so glad to be here again and hear everybody's great work. I, like Denise, am a little concerned about getting too political because, as you may know, I don't know if anybody knows my work enough to know, but my background is in sociology, my degree is in sociology, and my passion is social justice issues. So I often write with that kind of edge. The first poem, but hopefully nothing is going to be too offensive here. Cut me off midstream if you need to, Glenn. The first one I'll read is published in Dovetails, which is by Writing for Peace. I've been published with them several times. This is from what year? I don't know, maybe 2016, 2017. It's called Domestic Disturbance. Your privacy was invaded today when your car stalled outside my window. You didn't know I saw you, though I wasn't trying to hide. You just didn't have time to notice me while your soul was busy shrinking into all that was left of it to be. In shadows cast by the hulking, hostile presence of your husband. And through my office window pane, your half profiles danced to the violently silent disturbance of this choral. Until I make out something you say, that you're sorry and you love him, and then he goes away. I'm curious why he was mad at you, but does it really matter? And the irony of that shiny thing catches my eye, a peace sign dangling innocently from your rear view mirror. Thanks. And then the second one I'm planning to read here is called Fimbulwinter. If anybody has read a recent book that's out, it's a history of Vikings. And I feel terrible, I cannot think of the name of the author of the book, but it's Children of Ash and Elm. It's really good history, but it inspired me to write Fimbulwinter. And I'll open with a quote from the Seiros's prophecy. An axe age, a sword age, shields are riven, a wind age, a wolf age, before the world goes headlong. It's the Seiros's prophecy. The world went headlong into the deep, dark spaces of climate needs and plagues and death, disproportionate wealth and distrust. Prevailing winds of change await in the Fimbulwinter of humanity's new state. Meanwhile, we fumble, find footing, stumble again. For now, we cloister ourselves off in our living rooms, if we have them, to keep ourselves safe from impending doom, until we find relief, until history repeats. Thank you. And that one is actually on my website, samanthaterrell.com. Thank you so very much.
You're muted, Glenn.
Yeah, I gotcha. I figured it out at the same time that you told me that. I'm just having a whole conversation over here. Well, first, I think your poetry is lovely. I'm inviting you to go and publish a link to your website and anyone else who wants to on our Facebook post, underneath in the comments, anybody that's interested, because we're all about promoting, the poetry community is that quintessential idea to me. All ships rise with the tide. We all need to support each other, and by doing so, we all rise together. And so, if I can do anything to support you guys, or if you can use our platform, our little spot to put a little plug in for yourself, please do. We're happy to do anything we can. Ed Ahern. You'll have to unmute. There you go, buddy.
I am. Let's see if I can share. Okay. I'm unmuted, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. The poem on the left is the one I'll read first. These two have the distinction of being recent. The one on the left set a speed record for me. It was written on a Friday. I sort of buffed it up on a Sunday, sent it in at 5 o'clock on that Sunday. It was accepted and published by 9 o'clock on that same day, which shows you how desperate they were for copy at Red Eft. So the other one's not published yet. This one is called The Time of Day. It's true, actually. The Time of Day. A widow walks by my house each day in syncopation with the mailman. She has also lost a daughter, but what is gone is carried deep, for she always smiles and stops to chat. We exchange perhaps 200 words about weather and children and neighbors, but never about the death and absence so twined into our daily living and the knitting we do to cope. We sense with tacit understanding that our inanities give unsaid comfort to our silenced fears and grief. And the second one is Gleaning the Attic, kind of a same, minted at the same place, I think. Gleaning the Attic. The purgatory of my possessions reproaches me from the jumbled attic. Dusty sleeping bags and thermalware cached for trips no longer taken. Books on fishing and philosophy long unnibbled except by paper lice. An oversized silver-plated tea service, a present from a long gone aunt, blackened from never once being used. Phonograph records from a dead mother not played in several decades. A concretion of things once treasured, lacking any present grace or purpose, hoping to be redeemed by new owners. And there they are.
Okay. Very, very nice. Let me remove that. Your pentameter there is so lovely, Ed. You do that so well, the crochets and so forth. The balance of the syllables in the lines, the way that they feel so natural when they're spoken. There's no tension. There's no pushback. It's hard to do that really well. You did that so well. Thank you for that. Beck Dufour is what I have on my list.
Hello.
There you are. Hi.
Hi.
What's up?
Not much. Thank you for inviting me. This is my first time joining. You published my very first poem, like you're the first person published. That was really exciting. I was really excited to get this invitation. I'm going to read the first poem that you published. Oops. Sorry. And then I'm going to read an unpublished one. So the first one is Imperial. Floating, ethereal as the mist rolling over emerald hills, an azure sky beckoning, crying out to fly up, away, away from the madness of thought, of emotion, a crystal clear expanse, unmuddied where the light burns the gray fog away, to soar, closer to the source, sublime flight, imperial, graceful, above the clouds of shame and doubt, pain left below, far below, the vast skies limitless in their reach, heady and free, ascending ever higher, drifting over the mountains of despair. Thank you. And this one's a bit of a personal nature, but I wanted to share it. A tiny spark you couldn't touch, buried deep, so deep even I couldn't touch it. Yet it was there, waiting for the moment to flare into life, into fight, a fight for my being, my very essence, tarnished, a patina of broken heart, a broken heart, mending slowly over time, the cinders of myself coming to life, despite you, in spite of you, learning to fight for the real me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so glad. What an honor. You know, I love that when people say that their first poem was published with us. This makes me feel like I've done something nice to invite people in. That first poem that you read, I liked the authority of that, the way that you sort of began with these sort of dependent clauses and then you expounded upon them. And I don't know if you're aware of it. I try to say something helpful to people, but that you know, how do you get that relatability? How do you claim that kind of authority in a poem? And you do that sort of by, it's almost like in this particular case, you do it with that language where you sort of define things and then people sort of see you as the authority of how it's defined. And it's not like the full sentences don't say that, but the line breaks do. If you read the lines by themselves, very, very nice. And gosh, I hope I see you many, many times more in the future. Congratulations on your publication. Leonard Lunt, sorry.
Greetings from just outside Chicago, where it's definitely still winter. Even the dogs don't want to go out. In lieu of a short poem, an observation, somebody asked the general audience on Twitter yesterday, do you think you're a good writer? Nice open-ended question. My one-word reply was an honest yes. I mean, it's real close to 60 years now since I started writing poetry for public consumption. And I'm guessing that even I can learn how to do something in that amount of time. Check with my wife on that. That certainty, however, is tempered by something Carl Sandburg said when he was a few years older than I am now, writing his notes for a preface to his complete poems. Sandburg said, I should like to think that as I go on writing, there will be sentences truly alive, with verbs quivering, with nouns giving color and echoes. It could be, in the grace of God, I shall live to be 89, as did Hokusai. In speaking my farewell to earthly scenes, I might paraphrase, if God had let me live 5 years longer, I could have been a writer. I always keep that in mind, partially because the journey's never over and partially if my head gets a little bit too big for my hat. As for poetry, chronophobia is a real fear, although very few people have heard of it. It's a fear of time. Unusual for these kinds of fears. It's manifested in at least two different ways. For people who are incarcerated, it's a fear of time because time is moving too slowly. For us old farts, it's a fear of time because time is moving too damn fast. Chronophobic triptych, left panel. The old man attends the funeral. The words of the priest is comfort for those still confined, who wait on their release with longing and anxiety. Centerpiece. He walks early spring streets as the yellow buses stop. He recalls when his children filled the sidewalks and lawns with noise and smiles and later first held hands. One August afternoon, newlyweds move in where the widow Johnson lived in a self-made nunnery. The kids on the block feared getting their ball from her yard. His daughter and grandson visit a bit more. To keep at bay the leaves refilling his lawn like scarves cascading from the hat of a street magician called upon to fill idle family afternoons. This many steps to the door, this many more to make it down the snow-touched driveway. Right at the corner, right, left, no, damn it, right, and right. Home. Fooled you again, time. Right panel. 6 men, good and strong, to carry the slight weight, the soulless shell alone left. Memories grow heavier, but in the end, we leave them to burden other shoulders. Thank you.
Oh, you're a hard act to follow. So tender. And for people that don't know, a triptych is a set of 3 images. You know, Carl Sandburg, does his, I'm going to murder this, but he wrote a poem called Fog, right? It's the fog comes on little cat's feet, sits on silent haunches, looking over harbor and city, and then moves on. And if I'm wrong, please forgive me. It's just this little poem that I learned when I was 10, maybe. And we had to, I don't know if they still do this, but you have to get up in front of the class and you have to say a poem, or we used to. And I picked that one because it was so small. And then, anyway, I've always been a fan of Sandberg, and that's how I was introduced to him. So thank you for mentioning that. You know, how old did you say he was when he died? 88, 89?
No, he was hoping that he would live to be 89. He was somewhere in his early 80s, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to be in your 80s to make a big mark on poetry. We all know a lot of poets who did their very best work when they were older. You know, Franz Wright died when he was 62. He's probably one of my very favorite poets. Franz, Franz Wright, and just really, really, really special. He wasn't altogether there at the end, but he was a big influence on my life. And let's move on. Sally Ellisby. Sally, are you still here? Oh, there you are. Okay. We'll have to unmute you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks. This is so much fun. I'm having a great time. Thank you, everybody. It's for sharing. It's wonderful. And I'm a first timer. And many of my poems are about place. And Glenn published a haiku of mine in Haiku Journal 65. And I will end with that. But first, I'm going to read a poem called Dear Green River. I swam in you. You were not kind. Current-backed bends, big black rocks. You are a killer. 384 miles of you. Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Utah again. Squiggly line through desert dirt, through flaming gorge, through desolate canyon. Then the mighty Colorado sucks you up, steals your name. And yes, you are green. Thank you. And here is the, if I can get it up, the haiku about Bernie Falls in California. White water plunges through black rocks, black rocks, black rocks. Waterfall music. Thank you.
That was very nice. Repetition, that echo is such it's a powerful poetic element, and you don't see it very often in short poems like haiku, because I think people worry about wasted words and keeping the compression and the things that they want to do. That I like that. I mean, I don't see it very often. It's pretty rare, actually, and it's probably easy to really mess it up. But you did a great job.
Thanks.
Debbie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And
hello, y'all. I'm Debbie. I live just outside of Atlanta. This is my second time being on here, and I really appreciate it, Glenn. I thank you for the invitation. I wanted to read one from Three Line Poetry. It was a featured poem, but sorry, I can't remember the edition. It was like maybe 32, I'm guessing. Whittling words into a pile, I leave only the bone dry skeletons to walk the world unassisted. Thank you. And then I just recently, like yesterday, was published in this online journal, and forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. It's hard for me to pronounce, but ekphrastic,
yeah. Ekphrastic.
And really, ekphrastic isn't even really a word that I can find. But anyway, maybe that's why I can't learn to pronounce it right. But anyway, what you do is you write about a picture, a painting, a work of art, and I don't know how much y'all can see this, but it's called The Two Sisters by Chassereau. And I wrote a poem called The Two Sisters, and I'm getting to it. Okay, what I did was an acrostic, an alphabet acrostic, where the first line starts with each letter of the alphabet.
Okay.
So I challenged myself on this because I've never written that type of poem before, and I was very surprised that they took it. So I was pretty excited. Adele on the left and Aline on the right at first appear to be twins, despite their decade apart. Theodore, an artist of deft hand, invites closer inspection of his siblings. The scarlet frippery aside, one notices differences in the two beauties. Even though great effort was taken in matching the duo to fabricate the illusion of a genial pair, the artist was playing a game. Harmonious relatives closely spaced with the self-same intelligent eye gaze. Just a few differences emerge on the page. The keen expression of Adele on the left contrasts with the magisterial regard Aline projects. Neutral, yet with oceans of turbulence behind her eyes, pernicious with agency. Queenly elegance shines through her countenance, while repose and tranquility are etched on the face of her sister. The similarities manifest as a noted quality of transcendence, deep wells of joy and sorrow underneath the formal pose, and also an air of verisimilitude, offering the viewer a glimpse into womanhood, the portrait steeped in the seriousness of youth in the age of romanticism, somber yet sprightly. Zena standing upright, Chassereau paired, zeal for his subjects with unconventional flair.
An acrostic, ekphrastic. All right. Rock on. That's very impressive. Good job.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I would encourage people to try it. It was fun. And
I liked the so ekphrastic poems, that is an entire style. It's not just that one journal. They just happen to specialize in it.
Mhm.
And you take a picture, hopefully something that you some journals don't publish pictures, so it's good to have something that people can imagine. In some cases, depends on the journal, like the creation of Adam or something. But then in other times you can put the picture right up in there with it. And the way that you sort of stayed on theme and kept in the image the whole time, that's one way to go. And another way that people go is they sort of create a story about those two people. So in this case, the two sisters, and you might say, one of them is thinking about lunch, right? Or,
Right.
or something, and you're writing in a funny way that creates
Right.
a new way to look at that image that then people can't unsee that. Every time they look at the image, they're thinking that the one on the left is thinking about lunch. Anyway, that's great. Well done.
Thank
And
you.
I love acrostic poems, and I don't see very many acrostic poems. Usually that's something that we see in like classrooms and stuff like that as a exercise that people do. And when they're done really well, like yours was, they can be published. Peter, your MCO.
Okay.
Peter, you have to unmute yourself, buddy. Oh, I can hear you. Okay, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here in freezing Connecticut, but I got some Valentine's Day flowers from my daughter a little while ago, so I'm thinking spring. I'd like to read a poem that was printed in Boston Literary Magazine a couple of months ago. It's called My Day. Mother called to say happy birthday, as she does each year. She told me of the day I was born, how she was at Woolworth's on a winter's spring afternoon buying buttons for a sweater she knit. Mothers did that, knit sweaters for their babies. And there was always the Woolworth's for the buttons. Except this time she felt a little something that promised a momentous day. I teased, reciting the story along with her, because she recited it to me annually. She wanted me to remember my day, because she had no one left in the world who remembered her day, where they were and what they did. And she wished it wasn't so. Mother's gone now, so I have no one left in the world who remembers my day and where they were and what they did. And I wish it wasn't so. And the other one, I just sent this one out. Hopefully publication. The pandemic caught up with me and I finally felt inspired to write about it. And I call it This Yawning Time.
Peter, I'm sorry. I thought I didn't realize I had muted myself. I'm getting some messages from people saying they're having trouble hearing you. So could you try and speak up a little on your second poem?
Okay, all right.
Their speaker's a little low. Your mic's a little low.
Yeah, I've got a new contraption on my computer. Maybe that's what it is.
It's a little better. Just lean into it and.
Okay, yeah, that might be it. This is called This Yawning Time. An unfamiliar weariness sucks at the spirit, a black hole swallowing with certainty all aspiration and any notion of ambition. The soul's vigor, siphoned off, yields its place to torpor. It has heft this yawning time and lassitude and dissatisfaction with breadth and depth and weight so great as to be measured like a cut of meat. And more, the warning of an amber blinker, the fear our fancied immortality is just that. We pass long days and longer nights in expectation. We masked, we patient, we fortunate.
All right, thank you for that. I like how your language sort of drifts from this very specific, with like words like amber and so forth, and then into this sort of general. It sort of undulates through. It's really nice. I've always liked your work. I think I've told you that before, Peter. You always do a good job. I think in some ways, and it's not criticism as much as it is just observation. When I read your work in print, it sings a little bit more, I think. I don't know if you're not quite reading it in the same way I'm hearing it in my head when I'm reading it the first time in print, but I like the way that your work flows, top to bottom. It has this certain beat to it, as cadence to your work that I really appreciate. Debbie Walker Lass. Oops. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes,
There you go.
I read.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I don't know why I put your name down twice. Did you log out and then log back in at the beginning?
No,
It's just
no,
me. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I always mess up something. William Kofod.
Me.
Yes, me.
Me. Me, myself. Yesterday, I had 2 poems accepted by a magazine called Utah Life Magazine, and they'll be in the March-April issue this year. And then I release books self-published that you can buy almost everywhere, such as on Amazon. So I normally write about 240 poems, and then I put them all together and publish a book for myself to keep it all nice and orderly. And after they get old enough, I release them for sale on Amazon, and there's a number of books of mine there now. First poem I'm going to read is called Sickness, and it's in the current issue of Poetry Quarterly. In bright sunlight on dusty path, traveling many miles, a minstrel tired, looking for rest at the day's end. Sickness is upon the land and fear does grow. A people who, strangers who, may sickness bring, who listen not to stories told, news from afar. Doors are closed and windows barred, fear is within. No warm hearth, nor warm loft, or in barn cold, this night to pass along the way beneath the tree. A fire quite small, and the fish caught, food for the night, and in the dawn, continuing on along the way. Recently, whenever I write a poem like that, I sort of like the imagery of it, and I continue on and write maybe another 10 poems set in the same imagery. So this is another one from that sequence called Woodland Glen. Sitting in a woodland glen as the evening does begin, resting after a traveling day, with my lute I play and sing, of love lost so far away, longing for what I once had. My eyes are closed in the moment lost, hearing rustling of the leaves, feeling movement nearby. Open my eyes and I see a doe is there watching me. Carefully a look about, all around me I can see creatures of this wooded place listening as I do play. In the setting of the sun, as the stars shine overhead, I play my song sweet and slow for the creatures about me.
Really starting to enjoy your rhyme. I've heard your rhyme now a few times. You do it really well. We don't publish a lot of rhyme, but we have taken some of yours, I believe, and it's really nice. I just want to say, to honor everybody's time, if anybody is unable to stay, much longer, there's some pressing thing and you want to read, please don't be shy about letting me know that, because it's a good group. People will be very patient. We can move the schedule around a little if we need to. Margaret Tao.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I had trouble with my Zoom earlier when you called on me. I apologize and thank you for inviting me. This is my first time here. I'm going to read 2 haiku. One I wrote over the holidays and one is for Valentine's Day. Okay. Christmas morning, all alone with the dog. We exchange sides on the bed. Valentine's Day, red-winged blackbird wearing his heart on his sleeve. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I love that red-winged blackbird poem. That, I mean, if you've seen a red-winged blackbird, it has a little mark. That's great. Very nice. Thank you. And really happy to have you, you know. I hope that we can enjoy many more readings from you in the future. Douglas Van Hooser.
Hi, Glenn. I live outside Chicago in southern Wisconsin. I spent a great deal of time there. Comes to publishing, I've been on a hot streak lately. I just had 2 poems in Dead Fern Press, 3 in Magnolia Review, and 1 in Orange Blossom Review. And I'm going to start with a poem that was just published in Poetry Quarterly called Magnolia. The magnolia tree spring engagement announcement, a tulip-shaped pastiche pink, to bruise purple blast of beauty that erupts volcanic as first love. But spring is an indecisive partner, a roller coaster of sunlit warmth and clammy cold, flowers bewildered by rain, hopeless against the wind. Stained glass blooms shatter, petals strewn in a galaxy, litter the ground. Weather playing love me not. And I'm going to follow that up with another nature-related poem entitled Crabapple Pips. Every day in my November, the sun arrives late, leaves early. The wind whistles a dissonant tune. I rake the souls of leaves. For some reason this year, there are no acorns. Chipmunks must wonder why me as they bore their burrow deeper. The shades of brown are questions I don't want to hear. The stoic oaks give no hints, the mums oblivious. Frost has sunk its teeth, snowflakes pirouette. I wander through this denouement, a sparrow still finding seeds. Thank you.
So much personification of meaning in that. So I mean, you could spend a lot of time reading that poem and get different layers of it. It's very nice. Thank you, Douglas. Thomas Festa.
Hello. The first poem I'm going to read here, both the poems I'm going to read are unpublished. First one I'm going to read, I just wanted to define a few terms before in case they're unfamiliar. It uses a couple terms from sailing. One is Jenny, that's a Genoa sail, it's a foresail. And one is jib, used as a verb, which means to pull a sail round from one side of a ship to the other. Okay, so the poem is called Travelogue. Often we set out, but didn't reach the islands. Santa Cruz and Anacapa grow up as if anticipating our arrival. Outboard off, we'd tack, not talk, inured to words, jib the Jenny when he'd yell, relieved to find a footing where no tact was called for. No doubt you've heard the one about the man who sees his father for the first time under ice, frozen younger than the sun discovering his patrimony. At 50, I realized my dad, then 40, organized the failure of those trips so we would have to turn back disappointed, sail through the first darkness, home. Thanks. Sort of in keeping with this theme, this next poem is called Field Trip, and I wrote it for my son, Gabe, who is 14 and says he hates poetry. So this is Field Trip. Waves of stone rise ahead, swells in an earthen ocean. On the mountainside, early morning, mid-October. Mist rises from the valley floor, the glint of river scything through. The air is thinner. It gets harder to lie to yourself on the ridge. Slopes look gentler from afar than up close, sheer crags and scree, surge of shale and gray wax sandstone, bedrock lifted up and warped in the Permian. These breakers, too, someday will crash. They image permanence for now, like the group shot will snap at the peak. Classmates you'd rather play with won't matter in a dozen years, but they're as important as you think, for now. Dense geologic folds, synclines, anticlines, dot the horizon like opposed fates you could choose. To own your homing, you must listen, not to me walking near, but to the silent expanse beyond that vanishing point. And so we hike together, son, for this brief time, this being all we have. For now, we breathe hard together. Remember, it is glorious. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really nice. Very touching. On the family side of things, and then there's so many nautical terms in poetry. As I go through the slush, sometimes just as a little aside, as I'm working, I'll circle them. And have you all seen the movie, like one movie or another, at some point in the history of movie watching, where people are all on a sailboat and the sail swings from one side all the way to the other, and somebody yells "jibe ho," but the person is oblivious, and the boom of the sail hits them on the on the back or something and knocks them into the water. That's jibing, when the boat turns from against the wind to with the wind. All right, and it's great. It's such good imagery. I love that. Magda Sood.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Megha Sood. I'm a poet and editor from Jersey City, New Jersey. Thanks so much, Glenn, for publishing one of my poems in the recent edition, the fall 2020 of Poetry Quarterly.
Thank you for contributing.
One of the poems is called "Nobody Knows What the Raven Says." Silence culled in the twisted bough of the old oak tree, serving as the home for the ravens, the mendicant lives of the soul-carrying birds. They never knew how harsh are their cries, how loneliness is deeply seated in those calls, piercing the heart of the summer skies as it bleeds into the horizon. Loneliness cutting through the winds, grazing your skin, losing the tourniquet as the sound passes through your ears, bringing out the pain you never realized you have. Nobody knows what the raven says, an intricate puzzle of pain and soliloquy. Uh, Thank you. The second one I'm reading was recently published in the Mineral Lit Mag. It's one of the online poetry journal. It's called Poem and Its Hunger. Do you ever realize how the body reclaims itself, like the dried scar from the time of birth? You only realize its presence when you see it. The hunger reeks from your soul. And like the water from mother's hair wrung after bath, it brings out the scented memories of something pure and sublime. We all enter a poem knowing its hunger, and come out stripped naked of our emotions. There's always a death standing at the end of the sentence. Not every enjambment gives meaning. Some lines are meant to be left orphaned, like the day they found the old crumpled picture of my bombed city in my wallet. We all enter a poem knowing its hunger, like a night feverishly trying to find its salvation in the open mouth of the bloody dawn. Thank you so much for listening.
That was really nice. I like the line about the line about the orphaned line. Um, it can add so much. An orphan line can be very sad, in a poem, and not just misplaced. Sometimes it's very purposeful. I love how you called attention to that. As I don't know if any other group would get it. A group of poets like us, we understand what you're saying. It's so special. Thank you, Magda. That's nice. Let's see, Jenny Pina.
Here I am.
Yes, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. And it's so great to sit here and listen to all these wonderful poems. I have two new poems to read. The first one is entitled Keepsakes. Sixth grade girl of the 70s riding a school bus, pinching a nickel-plated POW bracelet tighter, tighter around her wrist. Not much else she can do for Captain Hubert Walker Jr. Try really, really hard not to lose him. Remember the letters of his name. That rainy morning, the bus smelled of baking bread. Captain Hubert Walker Jr. could be starving in a cell in Nam. Maybe he is a really big soldier. Maybe his dad was a Marine too. Maybe his dad calls him Bruiser. Maybe he can dig his way out. Sherry Eckert gets on the bus wearing a new flower power bracelet. Captain Hubert Walker Jr. is a real man in real trouble. Sherry Eckert was born full of herself. And anyway, the world has more interesting flowers than daisies, and real daisies aren't psychedelic. Big whoop, is that ugly bracelet gonna save him? The girl checked and rechecked all the lists. Captain Hubert Walker Jr. didn't make it. At the bottom of a ballerina jewelry box, among smiley pins and mood rings, Captain Hubert Walker Jr. was put to rest. And the second poem is titled Another Kind Man. Mr. Memmy kneading dough inside the Hershey bakery. Mr. Memmy, the first and only man who got down on one knee for me to hand me a hot powdery roll the size of my palm I placed against my cold cheek in winter. Pronio's grocery store selling everything under the sun from sausage to snowy bleach. Mr. Pronio with his utility knife, freeing plastic toys attached to products. She can have the giveaway prize, he would tell my mother. No need to buy anything, Mrs. Watts. Mr. Tooley fitting shoes, humming Sinatra tunes, never asking annoying questions about school. Mr. Cagnoli's flute lessons accompanied by two Dalmatians, one head for his lap and one for mine. I'd pause and squeak, forget flats, sharps. On my way out, a candy bowl. Try to remember to practice this week if you can. Maybe the whole town was inside a bubble, a 5 and dime plastic snow globe. I know the flakes don't fall by themselves. I know you have to shake up the world to make a small miracle happen, but look, Milton Hershey built a whole town and a boarding school, still birthing one bright future after another just by selling candy in this world. I don't believe in the Northern Star, not any God, no blind hope of any kind, but I do believe in something. I was there and I saw it myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I like the narration of your poems. I mean, they really take you somewhere and then they pull into a nice ending. And yeah, I mean, that sounds like a general statement, but not everyone does that really well. I feel like I went on a little trip there. The candy dish, right? I think if you ask any adult to really think about it, we're all going to remember somebody who had a candy dish when we were young, right? When we were kids. I remember my mother used to take me to this nursing home to see my great grandma Hall. And she had this candy dish. And I'm telling you, this lady didn't touch that candy dish for years. We would try so hard to take candy out of the dish because we were little and there was dust all over it. It was just the worst thing. It's so funny. Such a funny memory. I mean, we didn't think about it in those terms when we were kids, but it was horrible. Herb Codron. Let me get your name right here.
Powder. So
Powder,
close enough.
sorry.
And I'm on the east end of Lake Erie in the snowbelt south of Buffalo. And I just wanted to note when you were talking about the 80s, there's a pandemic willing monthly reading around here that every month there's people in their 80s reading. And as I empty nest, it's really nice to think that this is something I could do for another 25 years. It's very comforting to me. So as it turns out, in December, I had my 19th chapbook of poetry published as an ebook. It's called The Book of Fibs. So it's Fibonacci poems, which are based somehow on the Fibonacci sequence. And I'll read the first one from that, but also showing that when you're working with the Fibonacci sequence, there's a shape to the poems and various shapes to the poems. So, avian intervention. Ducks flew up and yelled at me while I was cooking on the first cookout day of spring. I negotiated, promising no birds had been injured in the production of this meal. Mollified, they headed back to the creek. And wow, there it is. And for the impending Valentine's Day, I'll just read a short old one. Light values. Moonlight, the cold, colorless reflection of the sunlight that gives us life. All our fictions and illusions tell us moonlight is romantic. What then does that say of romance? Thanks.
Thanks, Herb. That's nice. I don't know why I didn't write your name down any better than I did. I'm writing
It's not
feverishly
terribly
as people-
intuitive. Come on.
Well, no. I've seen it enough times. Let's see. Krista Planko.
Hi, everyone. I'm Krista. I'm from New Jersey. I missed the last poetry reading, so I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm enjoying this so much. But I have two short poems I'd like to share with you today. The first is being published in the upcoming Poetry Quarterly. I believe it's the fall 2020 edition. I wrote this one back in December when I was feeling hopeful and forward-looking about the year ahead. And it's still early in the year, so still feeling hopeful. It's called New Year's Eve 2020. A candle flickers as a draft of wind gusts through the fireplace. A torrent of leaves and ash follow, swirling in the tumultuous air, torn pieces of calendar days. I sweep the debris out the back door and slam it shut. Midnight strikes. I light the relinquished candle, watching the flame dance, rejuvenated. The image alights within my heart and warms my soul. I smile. A new year burns brightly ahead, a new beginning for all. Thank you. Thank you. And the second one is from the retired Tonka Journal. I have to say, I really missed this publication. Tonka was a form of poetry that was new to me. I had never written it before. And under, I have to say, the mentorship of Glenn, it was through your feedback that I learned the magic of that pivot line and mastering the art of writing these. I think I was featured in every Tonka journal that was out there, save one. But this one is from August 2018. Uprooted pebbles, lost, tumbling and rolling tide, caught in the current, newfound lovers swept away, seeking sanctuary shore. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like that journal too. Unfortunately, we just couldn't keep on a schedule because there just weren't as many submissions as we would have liked to have had for that. However, you can continue to write tanka, and you can submit them to Poetry Quarterly. And 50 haikus does not adhere to a specific pattern the way that Haiku Journal does. We do publish tanka in there sometimes. Certainly, Inwood, Indiana would enjoy that. Dual Coast would enjoy that. I love your tanka poetry. You're good at it. You should.
Thanks to you.
You
Really,
should
it was your
continue to write it.
feedback. Thank
Well,
you. I'll keep those other publications in mind.
no, thanks for saying so. That's really humbling. I appreciate
Thank you.
it. Okay. Alexandra Coates.
Hi, it's great to be here once again.
Hey,
I think
welcome
I
back.
I should start with the one that you just published. The Compass poem. Let's see, and then I'm not sure what I'll read next. Compass. Some people love numbers, nimbly adding or subtracting, proudly spotting the wrong one on the page, while others see them as nothingness. Numbers need meaning. Like the evening when we think about outcomes and endings, no longer concerned about elevation except in our dreams. Our dreams give substance to experience, solace after an infinitely sensuous solstice, to sustain the worth inwards in the woods, willfully tilting against the wind.
Did you have a second one?
I think I'll read a funny one. This is an ode to a humble egg. Oh, lovely egg, thou key ingredient in bread and pasta, puddings, quiches, cake, souffle. Thou fillest me up with joy each day that bursting flies straight to my head. The hen eats well, thou art her grateful gift. Thy symbol's one of hope, new life, surprise, softly nesting wrapped in drab disguise. Raw art thou, every creature's favorite treat. Thou speckled perfect egg, a competition's prize, if beaten, whipped, or lightly stirred with heat, or cooled in melted chocolate's mousse. Infinite ways there are to put thee to good use. Thy protein, muscle building, builds to lift. Disparate ingredients harmonize. On menu's sacred treaty, thee we loose. Thank you.
A humble egg. You might, be interested to know that when that first poem, the idea of the number being nothing, the sort of it really feeds into the philosophy. And I was very encouraged by a couple of the other poets that have been nice enough to come to these readings who talked about their brush with philosophy or their enjoyment of philosophy. And I think that your poem nested into there and sort of made me really appreciate it so much. And so it's nice. That's the sense of community informs me of what people like, and it's not just me. There's an audience for this. Very well done. I appreciate that. Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All righty. The first poem I'd like to read was just recently published in Poetry Quarterly by Glenn. So thank you, Glenn, for publishing this. The poem is called Like Snow. Like snow. Once during the bleeding of the last story from the night, I heard a song before it disappeared inside its dream. I asked the songstress if she could teach me how to sing it like her, and she whispered that I already knew. She said it was the only sound remaining after the wind carried the last storm to the sea. I remember it like the dark, broken stroke lines across the canvas of an unfinished charcoal sketching, as stark and powerful as an ancient scroll of calligraphy. Our language does not speak of it, though it unveiled a memory not fabled by face nor name, but by the secret in its stirring. And in my mind, when I heard it, I saw a moon painted silver leaning against a black sky, which dropped each star like snow upon my palms, buttered with fire. Thank you. The second poem I'd like to read, excuse me, was published in The Bitter Oleander. It's called Awaiting the Drumming. Awaiting the drumming. I slept on the crown platform of the step pyramid last night. I watched the stars collect in totems until the entire sky seemed like a crowd of staring eyes, awaiting the motions of my hands. I've awakened to the sound of monkeys and the smell of a body being burned. As I look at the sun, which is still too hungry to release its heat, I wonder what a pale God would look like, and what type of language would he speak? Would his powers help us understand his unfamiliar words? A group of narrow, dark clouds, low and quick, roll by like a river rushing through the sky. It is the blood of the Virgin returning to feed the sun. The new moon will hold white rain, and it will cleanse our dreams. I place my blanket on the top ledge of the pyramid and await a bird alighting upon it. So I sit still behind the altar, watching. Birds listen to the dead whispering above the clouds. They know of coming rain and the meaning of shadows. When I inhale fresh smoke, they speak to me. From up here, the lush expanse of treetops looks like a field children could run across. When I close my eyes, I feel I can see Tikal rising out of the distant jungle. At night, when there is no wind, I can sometimes hear its drumming. Next moon, I will not eat for 3 days, and our drums will begin just before my chest is opened and my heart removed, so God can descend into my blood. And we will join together like the twin wings of a great bird and fly behind the sky, never to be separate again. Undivided, we will return in the body of a jaguar, growling as God, to frighten even the strong who have not the wisdom to carry the weak to water. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Speaking about that second poem, particularly in the top third, there's a lot of symbolism, or it feels like there's a lot to be. And so when we talk about symbolism, we talk about signs, and what is signified by the signifier. So we look at what is it that you're saying, and then what is it actually signifying. And sometimes we write about love, but we're not really say love. We talk about birds, or we talk about flowers, or we talk about some symbol that other poets can sort of pull from and understand that there's some subtext here that's very special and delicate that we're writing about in a way. It's a good way to approach things, and I couldn't help but see so much subtext in that, and I thought, boy, I could get lost in this poem for an hour, just sort of bouncing it around and imagining it. Very, very nice. I liked that one a lot. I kind of wish you would have sent it to me, but you didn't. That's good. Good job, Lawrence. Okay, Mike Lewis Beck. Michael Lewis Beck.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Glenn. And I do go by Mike. People get that confused. I'm happy to be here. Last time I read some poems that I had published in the Poetry Quarterly. This time I'm going to read two unpublished poems. The first one is what called a narrow sonnet. It's got 14 lines, but each line's only got 5 syllables. So also, these two poems, I think, are in the spirit of Poetry Quarterly. I hope so. This is a bit of a theological bent. The speaker is trying to communicate with God. The title is Talking to God. Talking to God can be difficult. How to address him or her, he or she. Try Old Testament. Suppose he's asleep. If he's dozing, he's not moving his lips. So let's wake him up. God, it's breakfast time. We having bacon? Yes, with eggs and toast. No decaf coffee, espresso or drip. You decide. I can't. Thank you. This is in honor of Valentine's Day. I hope you're all taking care of your loved ones, buying them nice things and giving them hugs. This is called a romantic, well, this is a romantic ballad. It takes place around a visit to the philosopher Wittgenstein's home in Vienna. It's called Romanza Animosa. In St. Anne's Square, an itinerant guitarist brings Andrea back in ballad, back to green wine near the Viennese tram station, ramshackle on a summer's day. After Wittgenstein, his home, a slow walk, just the two of us, all logic lost in our laughter. Why send her now a poem about the ancient Dutch elm on the green outside my high office window? She answers, but about Rioja wine, about the rule of Saint Benedict, but not about Dutch elm disease. I'm under some sort of spell. The cauldron fumes smell of sage and lime. Romanza Animosa. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was nice. I'm going to try and talk a little less so that we can move along because we're coming up on the cutoff was 3 o'clock, but we're going to get everybody in. There's only 3 or 4 more people. So if anybody has to leave, let me know. I think Joel Tao was also a different account. I don't see him in here, so there's one. Carol Mertz, are you still here?
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Carol. If people don't know, Carol is the one that's always smiling.
I was a musician, a performing musician, and I think we always like to smile when we're finished performing. Thank you so much. I'm just learning so much. Just from hearing all of your different topics in itself is it's sort of enlightening to me. The first poem that I'll read, which is rhymed, Glenn, you posted it in your fall 2020 Poetry Quarterly. And it was written after I listened to a clarinet trio by Mozart. Listening to the trio, when I listened to the Kegelstadt today, I renewed a new province of my life I'd put away. Abandoned, it was startled back. I probed again those deepened clefts I thought I'd left behind. Come what may, music offers respite in our daily strife. Today's bans, restrictions, and enforced lack. Here's jaunty reassurance, played by musical adepts. Mozart thought the trio small, a trifle, he might say, a con brio, not dark, but lilting joy run rife, sounding out through music's winning track. It shows a way beyond, relief from darker depths. Thank you. The second one is an acrostic, and it was written on a painting by Martinetti, which is, the painting is called Spinning Flax. And it's in 5 verses, and the last line of each verse almost, but not completely, repeats itself. It's called Tender Fingers Held the Touch. So much color, so many lines, the rugged upward steps. She twists the yarn and twines the strands with delicate fingers poised, with wrists lent to the lengthy task. Here is beginning, perhaps without end. Here is doing what is expected, a way to reach beyond the daily, to extend one's touch. Other work neglected to focus on this lengthy task. No clouds adorn this flaxen scene, for on her face a gentle smile. Placidly, she sits between 2 baskets, leans and rests a while, then resumes her lengthy task. And often there must appear to her memories dear, the work done with sister or mother sitting by, another day of labor, another bit of work begun, a twist, a turn, a lengthy task. And mother would have taught her how, for that is how we learn. And she can still remember now her mother's face upturned, her praise tendered for lengthy and successful task. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I couldn't help but notice there, even despite the intentional rhymes, there are some little slant rhymes that sort of sneak in there and little moments of assonance, and I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dennis, I'm sorry I didn't greet you when you popped in, but you sort of snuck in a little bit after everybody.
Yes, I did. I've got 2 poems. They're complementary to the weather we're experiencing. And the weather here is snow every day, and it's currently 20 below zero and worse for tomorrow. The first poem is titled Polar Vortex. Polar Vortex. Boots kick up rhinestone, snow, grit. Expelled breath freezes. Hard rime frost stiffens the fur of my parka hood. Arctic needles tattoo nose, cheeks. I hawk and spit. Frozen phlegm rattles over white crust. A dervish whirlwind churns ice spangles up sleeves and pant legs. Knots of flakes cloud my glasses. Blue crystal fangs gnaw fingers, toes. An ice-braided demon, wind shrieks, I'll kill you if I can. In Ames, we have Iowa State University, which brings students from all over the world, and many of them have no experience with this weather. And indeed, it does kill. About every 3 or 4 years, somebody freezes to death. Second one is from my first full book of poetry, Near Death, Near Life, published by, you know it, Prolific Press. And it's a poem that's transformative of person and place. It's entitled Species Shift. Species shift. I slow step through chill, skim milk fog, arms out, booted feet, tender on ice glazed grass. The forest surrounds me, branches crusted thick with frozen fog whiskers, half snow, half lace. They change into coral heads, reefs. Misty currents eddy, blend into swirling ocean banners. My lungs fill and empty, transform the ordinary, spout liquid threads high into the haze. Sounds come in humid pulses, ratcheting clicks, high-pitched whistles and moans, whale songs, casting spells of salt and seaweed. I sense the schooling passage of glittering scales. From my flesh, tail and fins bud, grow, push. My body flexes in muscled ripples, knife slices through cold, buoyant vapor, skin satin, black and cream. I am orca, rows of finger-long conical teeth, smiling.
Thank you, Dennis. And thank you for coming to the reading. Once you publish a book with somebody and you work together like that, it's nice to keep the friendship going and get to see your face once in a while. Just nice. And congratulations, you got some recent publications, I understand.
Yes, I've had a really great 2.5 months. In December, I had a poem translated into Russian and printed in a journal in Archangel. And then I had won a first place in the American Pen Women's Flash Fiction Contest. And this month I've had 4 poems published in 3 different journals. So it's been a really great score for me.
Wow, you are in the zone. That happens, sometimes you just, I'm curious, did you read a lot before that sort of flurry?
Oh, yes. And of course, I trace a lot of it back to the pleasure I had working with you in April on 2 books. And of course, I've had some stuff published in some of your other magazines too. So this has been a great experience, Glenn. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It was our pleasure. And I hear that a lot. People tell me that their flurries, they're sort of groups of publications. They have their best month ever. It's right on the end of where they just stopped writing and did some reading, where they just delved deep into reading a lot of poetry, and then they came out, took a big breath, and just poured themselves out on the page. And that's what it's all about. You have to fill up the tank. That you have to read a lot of other work. That's like filling the bathtub, and then get out the notebook and and that's like draining the bathtub, where you just you take your own thing. And I've often told people they're not going to be great writers unless they read a lot, and it's all part of it. So get involved. And Dennis Malsby's books are fantastic. They're at the Prolific Press bookstore, if you don't mind the small plug. Okay, so Rescue Poetics is next. And you'll have to introduce yourself using your name. I didn't write it down.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Justiniano, known as Rescue Poetics. I've been writing poetry since forever, probably like everyone else here. A lot of my poetry is published to music. So you'll see that there's a lot of free-form lyrical poetry. And I have the honor, and I want to thank you for inviting me to read today. It's a pleasure. I am in Jersey City, New Jersey, along with Mega. We're neighbors and friends. So here we go. Don't we all fancy ourselves rebels, thinking we live outside of conformity, to do things we've never done, just to find out others have done it better, harder, and more raw than we? In the chaos of being rebellious, what we truly seek is serenity and acceptance. In the swirl of dark colors we don ourselves with is the ache for light by which we can see and fit. The rebellion of self we seek to discover, breaking of frontiers we never thought to uncover. Outside forces letting us who and what we are and telling us who and what we are. It is within our own rebellion we determine self-love. In the forcing of rules bent to the point of breaking is the starvation for moments of peace and awakening. Hearts that beat faster when questioned, intentions looking for discord instead of following the searching. Before we preach peace, tolerance, love, and unity, these things we must find within and be our rebellion. Televised for a global mockery, takes place without talking head commentary. How can we stand as a people, placating simplicity with mediocrity? First, we must excel within, feed that rebellion to our children, grow it through the unity of like minds, determined to break through the blinds placed before us to forget that while the grass may not be greener on the other side, it's rebellion that makes flowers grow there too. The rebellion, more often than not, sprouts in a classroom where teachers are expected to educate a systemic illness of ignorance and hypocrisy scored by tests that fail the community, focused on suppressing artists, leaders, and revolutionaries. Those things that make us human. You ever wonder why prodigy is an abnormality, professed to be unusual? The rebellion of self doesn't allow for those labels, to stop the creativity to be able to do what is in our nature to do, rebel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am going to stick around for a few minutes to chat to anybody that has anything they would like to say, but I think that's our last reader. Is just in case, is there anyone here that didn't read? I don't think so. I think I did a pretty good job of getting everybody. All right, so thank you all so much. I'm going to stop recording, but I'm not leaving. We're going to publish this to the Facebook page soon. You all did really well. This was probably one of the very best readings I've ever attended. So happy with the poetry today. Thank you all so much.
Glenn, in the chat box, it says Isaac. I'm wondering if he's responding to your question if anybody hasn't read.
Let's see here in the chat box. Where is Isaac? I don't see him in the list here. I think he might have bumped out.
He's here. He's here actually.
Oh, he is here? Oh, I see you up there. Okay, let me spot you. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, one more. Okay, great. Thanks.
So I've been writing and submitting to Poetry Quarterly for the past couple of years. They were actually the first magazine that published any of my poems, so it's great to be here. I'm going to read a couple that were published in, I believe, last year's Poetry Quarterly. This first one is based on a time I was doing a construction job and we would have to clean up rental properties when people moved out. And I discovered a photograph on one of the shelves that was, I figured out by examining it, was belonged to somebody who had died. And I thought that was an interesting opportunity to write. So this one's called Emily's Elegy. Let me pull it up here. When they laid you in Glen Ellen, your funeral card called it internment. Did they bring your favorite flowers? Were they sincere in their speeches? How am I the one you flew to from Forest Hill, Chicago? If you hovered here beside me, could your enchantment fix my teapot? Not that you're thirsty. Do you drink nectar up there with the Queen of Sheba? I wouldn't be so nervous if your elegy came swirling, but I can only study your glass features like a sparrow, and I wonder, what blessed prisoner of your locket held your gaze there and knew its passage to your heart, and I wonder, was he worthy? Or else who you wore that dress for when you didn't fully smile, holding back some rare emotion between delight and resignation. Did tenderness or beauty's cruelty adorn your eyes like almonds? Was it that you tried to please them or that you didn't need to? Did they ever understand you? Were you free just for a moment? Were you scared to leave the body? Did you learn what we forgot? Did they love you? Did they try to? Is there a crater in your heart? I promise if we met, I'd not beleaguer you with books. You seem more the type for dancing. In the next life, would you teach me? Thank you, thank you. And then the next one I did for, I believe it was the latest 2020 issue. There was a submission call for COVID related poems. So this one is called Hymn to COVID. Some stayed high and discussed the Nephilim in deserted wartime bar rooms, Paris awaiting Germany. The street lamp flickering like you said it did for us or for the spirits. Some trembled, some hoarded, some loved or else meant to, and some gave over to a final clawed hate. All were drunk and cried from a safe distance, wandering weightless through the parks, the streets empty as their backpacks, a half-realized instinct to depart. Their eyes were afraid, but they walked arm in arm around the gazebo and under the footbridge, kicking death, singing, though the fountain had dried up, and the clouds shrouded the hills as for burial. The silver-stranded wisdom of the willow regarding them, reckoning the salt-sown plot once gardened, the tree there whose life is in the crown of its canopy, under whose shelter birth pangs bought them roses, thorns.
Very nice. In that first poem, I felt like you really nailed the introduction of yourself to the reader. That is to say that we have this concept in poetry called the ever-present I, and that is that the poet is always there, right? Because the reader is reading a poem, the poem is written by the poet, so the poet is always present because the reader knows that, right?
Yeah.
And when you on that line where you say, "I won't beleaguer you with books," right? It's as though you, as the poet, sort of step forward for a moment, because it's related to the literature, literacy, and the art of all of that. And I really like that idea. But you can overdo it if you have a poem where you're saying I. You sort of you lose readers. I think you really have a good instinct about how much of that you can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nicely done. Good balance in that poem. I appreciate that. Okay, all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for coming. Like I said before, I am going to stick around for a few minutes, but if you got to run, I see a lot of people dropping out. Thank you all for showing up. That was so nice.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everybody, for reading.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. I enjoyed it.
I'm so happy you
Thanks,
all
Glenn.
came.
Thanks again, Glenn.
You're welcome, John.
Bye.
All right, bye, Krista.